All right, so welcome for those of you that can make today. We're glad to have you with us. I'm Bonnie, and I'm going to go back to reading from my notes instead of ad-libbing this. I'm the administrative advisor who supports your programs, among others. And as we wait for some more students to join us, I will invite you all to just drop in the chat, which I'm turning on now. Just drop in the chat which program you're in if you feel like it, to kind of let us get an idea for who's here tonight. Though I'm assuming it's going to be from just the programs that we sent this out to and that I advise, but we'd like to know how many people from each program. That'd be nice if you just let us know. Then a note for anyone who happens to be here that's in any of our alt-cert or partnership programs like the ITI, the New York City Teaching Collaborative, or the Teaching Fellows programs. Just wanted to let you know that you can obtain program-specific certification and licensing information by contacting Alyssa Herbert, who is actually your graduation and certification advisor, because not all of the information that we'll be sharing tonight is specifically or correct for your programs. And we're not going to be able to stop and say, oh, this is for, alt-cert programs and this one's not. So we just ask that if you're in an alt-cert or partnership program, you please do reach out to Alyssa Herbert instead for your certification questions and support with applying. And we do plan to email a copy of the slides to everyone who registered. If you registered with a Hunter email, if you didn't register with your Hunter email, you can still get a copy. You just are probably going to need to reach out to us and ask for a copy. We'll provide contact information later if you're not sure how to reach out. Okay. So once we get into the presentation here, we're going to shut off the chat so that we ask you to just listen for the time being, and they're going to reopen the chat so that you can ask questions at the end of the workshop. And thank you a lot, Lucia, for dropping Alyssa's contact information in the chat. Okay. For now, I'm going to turn off the chat. Let's take a quick look at who we've got. Bilingual, music, TESOL, beautiful. Am I missing anybody? Bilingual extension, perfect. So that covers the range of programs that we invited tonight. So glad to have you with us. Okay, moving on. So during our session, we're going to go over the requirements for our teacher certification programs and the common pathways towards certification, how you're going to apply on your Teach account, where to get additional support for this as well. Let's see, and another reminder is just try to keep yourself muted, keep your microphone on mute until we do get to the Q&A session, and we invite you to unmute yourself if that's the case. All right, so as we mentioned, this is going to be an overview on certification. If you have additional questions that we don't end up covering and they're very specific to your circumstance, it's perfectly fine to wait and reach out later to let us know. Something just happened and my screen changed and I'm discombobulated. Let me minimize this.
Sorry, Bonnie, I was sharing the screen because I saw the PowerPoint wasn't visible.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Very good point. So you're sharing now, right?
I'll share it, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So I was on, yes. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Certification and graduation advising. So there we go. Just getting myself set up again. All right, so basically everybody who's here tonight, I'm your administrative advisor. So while we have a number of administrative advisors in the School of Education who act as your certification advisor, as this little graphic indicates, for everybody here tonight, you are basically going to be reaching out to myself, Bonnie Veronico, if you have questions about anything to do with certification. And again, if you're in one of our alt-cert programs like a TESOL Fellows or TESOL Collaborative or the ITI Bilingual, then you would be reaching out to Alyssa Herbert. Anything that you have questions on, even if we cover it tonight, you can still reach out if you forget something. So by email or by making an appointment with me. All right. A big piece of information we'd like to ensure everybody is familiar with, because it comes up a lot, is that there are 2 accounts that you might hear referred to as Teach. It's very important to know the difference because one of them has to do with your certification and the other one does not. The NYSED, or New York State Education Department Teach account, is what you need to apply for a New York State teacher or well, school counseling certification, but everybody here is for teaching certification. So this is your NYSED Teach account. You'll hear us refer to it a lot as your Teach account. We're always talking about your NYSED Teach account. It's not to be confused with the New York City DOE's, sometimes called Teach account, which is really their employment or job portal. So the DOE, the New York City DOE's website is the teachnyc.net website. That is specifically for people looking to apply for jobs in New York City public school system. If you are not applying to a New York City public school, then you would not be using the teachnyc.net website. So if you're looking to get jobs in Long Island or in Westchester, you don't need to worry about the NYC DOE's site. So you're not going to be on teachnyc.net. You're only going to be on the NYSED Teach account. Everybody needs a NYSED Teach account, but only people looking for public school jobs in New York City need the teachnyc.net. So just don't get this confused. It's very, very important. You must have a NYSED Teach account or you can't get certification. Okay. Then basically there's two types of certification for everybody here. You would be applying for your initial or professional. The initial is the certification most people will be applying for when they finish their first teacher preparation program. So if you're not certified right now and you'll be graduating from your program soon or at any point later, you'll be applying for your initial certificate. The initial certificate will expire in 5 years. Once you meet the requirements for professional, which we'll go into in a minute, then you will have completed, in most cases, you will have completed a master's degree and you'll have completed 3 years of teaching experience, and you'd be applying for a professional certificate, which does not expire. So unlike the initial, which is good for 5 years, once you qualify for professional and apply for that, if you receive professional cert, it's not going to expire. We'll talk more about the details of applying for and maintaining a professional certification in a moment. Okay, so and again, you'll get a copy of this by email if you register with your Hunter account, so don't worry about taking notes. We'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. And if you forget any of this, you can always reach out again, but the copy that you have that you'll receive by email will have hyperlinks, so you can click on these links to everything we're talking about. Okay, so in order to apply for initial certification, teacher candidates will need to complete the following requirements. Everything that's shown on this slide, basically. Note, some of you are in programs that you may have heard mention a portfolio required to graduate from your program. That is different from the EdTPA, which is noted here as a certification requirement. If you are told you need to do a portfolio for graduation from your master's degree program, that is not the EdTPA, it is separate. Don't worry about confusing those, because the EdTPA is required for certification. Professional teaching portfolio is a graduation requirement only for master's programs. And for some of them, like actually all of the creative arts, except for visual arts, TESOL and creative arts have a portfolio requirement that is worked into your supervised teaching course, except visual arts education. If anyone here is in the visual arts education, that is a standalone portfolio that you do for your culminating experience with Professor Kent, and it is not the same as the EdTPA. A note, just remember, you're not automatically granted certification. So just like you don't automatically graduate at the end of your programs, you need to apply for graduation. It's the same with certification. You have to apply for certification. You'll need to do this through your NYSED Teach account. And we have some nice specific instructions on how to apply for your certification on your program's certification page. And that's also going to have a very important piece of information, which is called the program code, that you will need when you're filling out your application. Again, these are all links on the presentation that you can get by email later. Let's see. We are going to talk about the EdTPA Safety Net for those of you that it is relevant for, and some other COVID-19 sort of considerations, like the emergency certificate at the end, towards the end of the presentation today. All right. So just to review professional certification requirements, it's really basic. On the oversight, you just want 3 years of full-time teaching experience in the area that you're applying for, and you need to hold a master's degree. If you have 3 years full-time teaching experience completed and you have earned a master's degree, then you're probably eligible to apply for professional certification. And if you're not sure if you are, you can certainly reach out to me and check. And this goes for even after you've graduated from Hunter, you're still going to have a certification advisor at Hunter. Hopefully it'll be me for many years, but reach out anyways if you have any questions about applying for professional at any time. we are here to support you. You will, again, apply for your professional certification also on your NICED Teach account. There are instructions, again, on your specific program certification page as well. And obviously, you want to make sure that your fingerprint clearance and your residency or citizenship is maintained, because those are also side qualifications, side requirements to have professional certification. All right. Let's see. Ultimately, oh, sorry, Christine, not done yet. When it comes to experience, some people are concerned about the 3 years of experience that are required for professional certification. So just to cover one main concern is, if you, basically the state is the only one that can say what experience counts towards your certification. So we can give our advice, but there's no guarantee the state is going to say, oh yeah, what you were told is correct, we're going to count all of this. Generally though, you can expect teaching experience to count towards your 3 years for professional certification if you've completed those 3 years in any full-time teaching position in a public school and you were hired under your initial cert, or if you've been teaching in the appropriate grades and subjects in a private or a charter school, that should count as well. Substitute positions can also count, whether it was full-time or part-time, as long as it's in the right grades and subject for the certification you're going for professional in. TA positions, teaching assistant positions, are not usually counted. But again, if you want to submit verification from your employer of that time spent working in a TA position, the state will make the decision. The good news is, if you hold professional already, or you are expecting to qualify for professional by the end of the program you're in currently, then you can apply for professional cert in any other certification areas you hold or that you earn in the future. You do not have to earn 3 years of experience in every individual certification area. As long as you meet professional requirements in one area, you can apply for professional in every other area. Okay, going on. So there's a lot of exams that teachers need to take in New York State. For those going for your initial certification, we put up a list here. The 3 main examinations that NICED requires for all first-time teacher certification applicants are the EAS, the CST, and the EdTPA. The EAS is often described as a general education knowledge exam and can be taken at any point in your program if you have not already taken it. In our creative arts programs, you may hear advice to wait until you've taken the SPED course, which is SPED 308 or 708, depending on if you're undergrad or grad, before you take the EAS, but it is up to you. We've had people pass without taking the SPED course. Has not really been an issue. The CST is specific to your area of certification, as it indicates in the name, content specialty. You are required to pass this corresponding CST exam for any certification you receive in different areas. So if you have a certification in TESOL, you'll pass the ESOL CST. If you go on later to get a Students with Disabilities certification, you're going to be asked to pass the Students with Disabilities CST, and in that case, also the multi-subject CST. So there's always a CST specifically associated with the certification area. Generally, for your programs right now, it's advised to wait to take the CST until you're at least halfway through your program, for, say, for example, the TESOL programs, or after you've taken your methods courses. That's for our creative arts programs. And the EdTPA is a portfolio of lessons and video along with a narrative where you address specific tasks or questions. If you don't hold any prior certification, your supervised teaching seminar is usually where you will begin creating the materials that will be used in your EdTPA. Now, for our bilingual extension students, those 3 exams aren't necessarily of interest to you because you have prior certification, but you will need to take and pass the BEA if you have not already done so, which is going to basically confirm that you are proficient in the languages you intend to teach in. Finally, for those of you who are in any programs that require prior certification, like some of our TESOL programs and the bilingual extension specifically, you might have been admitted before your first certification was issued. In this case, you would have an admissions condition we call a T-cert. It means you need to show proof of receiving your initial certification before you can graduate from your current program. If you have this condition, or you see the milestone in your CUNY First Student Center and have any questions about how to clear it, just reach out to me. Okay, moving on. We do have resources out there. There's a lot of resources on the internet, but to get you started, we've included a list of state, CUNY, and Hunter resources you can review at your leisure. Again, these are hyperlinked in the presentation, so when you get your copy, you can just click on the links to explore. All right. Next, so we're trying to move through this so that we can get to questions at the end. So don't worry again about remembering it right now. Just hold your questions and we will help you at the end after we dump all this information on you. So pathways to certification. When you apply for the certification related to the program you are in now, you will apply via the Approved Teacher Preparation Program pathway. You'll automatically be reviewed under this pathway if you apply for your certification on Teach using the instructions and program code found on the certification page of your program. There is only one exception to pathway selection for teacher candidates. If you completed an undergraduate program in education, those only lead to initial certification. So when you are ready to apply for professional, you're going to do things a little bit differently. Instead of entering a program code on the application for professional in that certification area that you earned after getting just a bachelor's, you'll select the checkbox below the area for program codes, which we're going to see on an image in a few slides. So I'll point it out again there. And this simply confirms that you're not in currently and you haven't graduated from a program that leads to professional in that subject area. Any approved teacher prep program pathway means that you do not need to order your official transcripts to be sent to the state. So anybody who's ever received certification or is receiving certification or applying for certification after completing any teacher preparation program, you do not need to order your official transcripts because it is not necessary. After you graduate, we notify the state that you've completed the specific program, and then they don't need to see any transcripts. The verified education section of your Teach account is just going to remain blank, and that is perfectly fine. There are instances when you would need to send official transcripts, but in your cases, you do not need to. So you can certainly reach out to me if you ever have questions about that in the future. All right. So the timeline for all of this to happen, we put up on this slide just to kind of try to clarify it for you. And basically, while in your programs, those of you who are not previously certified and those of you who need to take a new CST, you're going to usually need to complete the EAS and CST prior to doing supervised teaching for your program. But a note is because of COVID right now, that requirement has been waived through spring 2022. So if you plan to do supervised teaching in spring next year, you do not need to show that you've passed the EAS and the CST in order to be approved for supervised teaching. Obviously, though, you still need to pass those for certification at some point. Then after you do if you are required to do them, your EAS and CST for supervised teaching, you're also going to want to make sure that you apply to graduate by the posted deadlines on CUNY's website. This goes for everybody, even advanced cert programs and the bilingual extension. You must apply to graduate. Today, by the way, is the deadline for fall graduation. So if you are finishing all of your courses this fall, please do apply today if you have not already. Apply today for fall graduation in your CUNY First account. All right, then once you've got those items sorted, you're going to be applying for certification, usually in your final semester or close to when you think you'll be completing all of your outstanding exams. Every application you submit is valid for 3 years or 2 manual evaluations, whichever happens first. And we will say that manual evaluations are not frequent. So don't worry that somebody's gonna look at your application before you have everything met and deny it. The applications won't be reviewed or considered ready for review until we submit the recommendation, which happens after you graduate, usually 1 to 2 weeks later. The registrar's office, if you're looking for fall graduation, just keep in mind that the registrar's office often has delays and they're the ones that are in charge of reviewing you for graduation. Do contact me if you are concerned at all about the timeline for receiving our recommendation so that you can get certified. Do let me know if you have any issues that require you to have certification issued like very quickly, or you're concerned that your graduation won't post in time. Those of you who are eligible for the ATSW, we will be talking about that more towards the end of the presentation. There is also, some of you may have seen in the past, a delay with NICEAD in reviewing applications for certifications. So it could take anywhere from a month to multiple months for them to get around to reviewing and issuing certification. And that's if you have everything met when you apply. If you have an employer who is very anxious for you to be certified, there is an option called an expedited review request that they can submit, but just be aware that this is something that can only be done once and only under certain circumstances. So you could certainly reach out to me to find out more about that if that's something you'd like to look into. Okay, moving on. We've got some images here that we have captured from the Teach website when you're doing your applications. Basically, on the left side, when you first log in, it's going to bring you to a New York State application hub. And if you've already created your account for the first time, you'll still have to click on Teach Online to finalize the creation of your Teach account. But when you go into your Teach account, it should look like the screenshot on the left originally. And then you'll have to click through to get to your home page. So select Teach Online Services, and you'll bring it to your home page, which essentially looks like the right image. The account information link that you'll click will bring you to a page that shows you your progress towards certification. For example, you can look up your workshops, your exams, your fingerprint status. You can look up any applications or certifications you have submitted there. So let's see. There is a separate link to apply for certification though, which is where the red arrow on the right image is pointing to under online application, where it says apply for certificate. So when you're applying, that's what you're going to click. And then the next slide has 2 more images. In the beginning of your application, after a page of basically just text telling you a whole lot of boilerplate information, the next page of the application is going to have some information like the number 3 photo. It'll ask you to update and verify information. And that's normal. You may have already entered this information, so you might see something there already, which is fine. If there's nothing there at all, you will need to populate the information that's missing. If you don't need to update the information that you've already entered, then I will just say there's a note. It's going to make you update your education information. But if you don't need to edit it, just click the edit button, scroll to the bottom and click done, and then the application will let you continue. You will then be asked to specify which certification area you're seeking, and that's where you see the image on the right, number 4. You're going to select your area of interest and every other drop-down menu. Just a tip here, the page reloads every time you select something from a drop-down, so it'll pop you back up to the top. A note, you can only apply for 1 certification area and 1 certificate at a time. So you'll have to go all the way through an entire application for 1 subject and 1 certificate level and submit that before you can go back if you're planning to apply for anything else. All right, moving on. So once you enter the exact certification area that you're applying for, you'll be directed to a page that's going to ask you for a program code, which you can see in this image here. A little bit towards the bottom of the middle, there's an empty box for you to enter the program code and a submit button. At that point, once you submit that, you would be asked on the next pages to sign an affidavit and submit and pay for your certification. Once submitted, you can track your progress via the account information link on your Teach account. And we're going to actually go into how to check your status also on another slide. I will point out though, in this image is where any of you who later will be applying for professional in an area that you received certification after only completing a bachelor's degree. In those cases, this is where you would not enter the program code. So if you only earned a bachelor's in this area, you would be marking the box that says below that, it says, no, I've not completed nor am enrolled in an approved teacher prep program. And that's again, the case where if you're applying for professional in a certification area that you've only completed a bachelor's for. This is where you'd see the difference. But for all of you finishing your Hunter programs right now, when you're applying for the certificate related to this program that you're in right now, you will be entering a program code to apply for your certification, whether it's initial or professional. All right, unless we have anybody in a creative arts BA program here. I don't think we do though. Okay, going on. Here is step-by-step how to check your application status. So when you log into your Teach account, here are the steps you'll need to take. You can also follow the link on this slide, which takes you directly to the NICEAD's how to check your status page as well. But basically, you're going to log in. navigate to account information. That'll give you a box with a whole bunch of options to select. From the box, you're going to select certificates and click submit. On the next page that loads, you're going to scroll down and you'll see a section called applications. Every application you've submitted will have a column that reads status, and you can click on view evaluation history to see the actual status. Let's see what your application looks like. It's going to bring up a new window. You're going to click on a hyperlink that will open a checklist of your application showing every single requirement for the application and what's met or unmet. Now, on that page that shows status as well as where you can click view evaluation history, the statuses will be different depending on what's happening with your application. The most common application status is going to be not ready for review or ready for review, which is totally normal. Prior to receiving Hunter's recommendation, it's usually going to be in a status that says not ready for review. Once you have graduated and we've recommended you, the status normally changes to ready for review. That doesn't guarantee that all requirements are met. Your application can be in ready for review status, but you're still missing requirements. So just click on view evaluation history and the next hyperlink to open the checklist to make sure what's missing, what's been met. The New York State Department of Ed will review the application when they reach it in a virtual pile. So basically, once it's in ready for review status, the state is going to do a review, but there's no guarantee to know when because it kind of gets just slotted into a whole list of applications in order of when they reached ready for review status. All right. Moving along, I'm going to hand it over to Christina at this point. Don't worry. Few more slides and then we can do Q&A.
Hi, everybody. I work with Bonnie in the Office of Academic and Student Affairs, and I also support students with certification, just in different programs. So if any of you here are eventually interested in pursuing additional certificates after you graduate, you are welcome to explore. We have programs available for you essentially at Hunter College. And these programs are really designed to deepen your knowledge and skills and will advance teachers towards that master's plus 30 salary step or differential in the NYC DOE. Additionally, we do have fee waivers available for candidates who are intending to apply for a program immediately after graduating. In addition, fee waivers are also available for candidates applying for a program leading to special ed certification, regardless of when you graduate. So we do encourage you to visit our admissions page for information on how to apply and how to connect with our colleagues in the School of Ed admissions team. I did also want to address out-of-state certification because Bonnie and I do get these questions a lot. We unfortunately aren't able to advise on how to pursue certification outside of New York, just because every state has their own very specific nuances. However, if you do end up needing to pursue the certification outside of New York, you can submit any required forms that we at Hunter would need to fill out for you via our out-of-state certification request form. Just throwing it out there. It's linked on the slide, but it's also available on our certification page. And we do also recommend and encourage you to review available resources within the Hunter College Career Development Services Office and the School of Ed specific CPPD office or Career, Professional, and Partnership Development. Both of these offices provide resume and cover letter support. The School of Ed CPPD also has networking events and workshops specifically with the DOE, so you would be encouraged to review any upcoming workshops and attend. They also have a pretty extensive job board where schools will post available positions, so please do check that out. This office, the School of Ed CPPD, also manages those virtual teacher certification exam workshops. So keep an eye out for the opportunity bulletin that you received through your My Hunter email for more information. Those workshops should also be posted on our website, so you can find that there as well. I did also want to take a moment to address anyone who might be applying for a position through the DOE. So if anyone is applying for these positions while they're still technically in school, like in your last semester right before you graduate, You will be asked to provide a letter from a hunter verifying that you are indeed on track to graduate in that semester. And we can provide that letter for you. You will need to request it through our letter request form. Those are generally available within 2 weeks. So please do make sure that you are requesting the letter in a timely manner. All right, so moving on to some COVID considerations and additional optional pathways. So as a student, if at any point in your program you are offered an employment opportunity that requires certification, again, while you are still enrolled and not yet going to be graduating, it may be possible, and a keyword may be possible, to request an internship certificate. So we referenced this very early on. This is an institution-sponsored certificate type that does allow you to teach as the head teacher, but this is not a guaranteed certificate. You do need to be approved for this by both faculty and admin at Hunter. And there's a few different ways that you might qualify. So in the first scenario, students who are already approved for a practicum experience might qualify for this. Any student who has already completed their supervised teaching experience, but for whatever reason you haven't been able to graduate yet, you might also qualify, though you would need to enroll in a course to receive supervision. And lastly, it might also be possible to request an internship certificate if you have completed at least 50% of your program and have received recommendation by a faculty member or your faculty advisor who has knowledge of your performance in any other clinical setting that you may have already, any other clinical experience you may have completed. And in this scenario, again, you would also need to be approved for and enrolled in a 1 to 2 credit course, which is determined by the faculty at that time. So essentially, your first step, if you are interested in this option, is to meet with your faculty advisor to verify your eligibility. Some additional requirements for this certificate type. Again, you do need to be already employed in the field and in a setting that is directly related to the certificate that you're pursuing in your current program. You also need to have already completed your teacher certification workshops, including the DASA, school violence and child abuse workshops. And you do need to, again, be enrolled in a course in order to, in a qualifying course to receive this internship certificate. This certificate, the internship certificate, will expire once the qualifying course has concluded. The only exception is if you maintain continuous enrollment in like a supervised teaching course, like for example, some students might have 2 semesters of practicum. In that case, it would last the duration of the practicum experience. We also want to take a moment to go over some COVID considerations. We know a lot of students have questions about this. So for those of you who are graduating by next summer or the summer 2022 term, you may also qualify for something known as the Emergency COVID-19 Certificate. And just to emphasize this, you must first graduate before you can qualify for this certificate type. And just to provide more context, the Emergency COVID-19 Certificate is an option offered by New York State in response to the pandemic and testing center closures. We're going to be talking a little bit about the EPA Safety Net in the next slide, but please note that these options are not related. It is possible to be eligible for both, but eligibility for one does not determine eligibility for the other. So again, speaking very specifically about the Emergency COVID-19 Certificate, this certificate type allows you or allows teacher candidates to start teaching as the head teacher while working towards completing those exam requirements. The intent for New York State in creating this was the realization that many of the teachers were not actually able to access testing centers. So what they're doing is saying, if you have met all of the requirements, including having graduated from your program, but if you're missing some exams or even all of your exams, you can start teaching under this emergency certificate while you work towards completing those outstanding exam requirements. And just to reiterate, reemphasize, all other certification requirements, including having graduated, must be completed before the deadline. And the deadline has actually just been moved, which I put in red text. It's been moved to September 1st, 2022. So they actually expanded eligibility criteria. So to apply for the certificate type, you must first have an application on file for your base certificate. So for example, your initial in TESOL pre-K to 12. While you do have to pay for that base certificate, you do not have to pay for the emergency certificate. And again, both applications must be submitted on or before the deadline to qualify. And I do want to emphasize fingerprinting because this tends to be a challenge for a lot of our students in the past. Please make sure that your fingerprints have been received on your Teach account, because that is also something that needs to be marked as verified completed before the deadline. So now moving on to the EPA Safety Net. I shared very briefly in the last slide. So New York State, and in addition to the emergency COVID-19 certificate, New York State has also approved the use of the EPA Safety Net, otherwise known as the ATSW, to be completed instead of the EPA for qualifying teacher candidates. And we'll break down who qualifies in a moment. And just to share what the ATSW is, this is a sit-down exam that's a lot more similar to the EAS and CST exam. It's also significantly cheaper than the EPA, so it's a popular option for those who do qualify. And again, qualification for this is not dependent on qualifying for the emergency certificate. And and eligibility is not dependent on when you graduate. It depends on when you completed a qualifying supervised teaching course. So you will need to have already completed or will need to complete a qualifying supervised teaching course in either the spring 2020 semester, fall 2020 to spring 2021 academic year, or this current fall 2021 to spring 2022 academic year to qualify for this ATSW. A complete list of all qualifying courses is available on our certification page, which we linked, but you can access separately as well. Please note that either the EPA or the safety net are required for your initial certification. And if you do qualify for the safety net, you are able to take advantage of this option up until September 1st, 2024. Please also know that if you are also pursuing the emergency COVID-19 certificate, you should complete the ATSW before the emergency COVID-19 certificate expires, just so that you have continuous certification. Eventually, you are going to need to contact New York State to verify that you are in fact using this option if you qualify. However, this should be the absolute last step when it comes to applying for certification. Anyone who qualifies will be receiving an email with instructions on next steps and confirming that you qualified, but that email won't come out until closer to the end of the semester where you're completing the course, and likely after final grades are received, just to make sure that you have in fact completed that course. So please do make sure to wait until you get that email before you take next steps. Because if you take it too early, if you contact New York State too early, they're going to tell you you're not eligible, even if you are. So again, keep an eye out on your My Hunter for those instructions, even after you graduate. We covered a lot today, and we covered it in record timing. So now we're going to open up the chat, and I'm going to read some questions out for Bonnie, who will answer them.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, please do go ahead and put questions in the chat. If you're unable to chat, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you to ask your question.
And Andrea, I do notice you just raised your hand, so you're welcome to unmute.
Thank you so much. I was just curious, if I'm graduating during my last semester of student teaching and hopefully finishing December, at the end of December, so should I hold off on looking for jobs? In my mind, I was going to start looking right away, but it sounds like my certification won't be visible to employers for weeks or possibly longer. So how do I'm just concerned about the timing to make sure, do I wait to apply for jobs until everything is showing up and teach?
It does create a potential concern with the timeline when you graduate in the fall, yes. What I would recommend is that it is perfectly fine to begin a job search, hoping to find a position for the spring. What you'll need to be aware of, though, is that there may take some time for the registrar to graduate you officially. If, however, you find a job, you have a job offer, and it is on or after January 1st, and School of Ed, myself, has reviewed you for graduation, and I find nothing missing, and I fully expect you to be graduated by the registrar. Then, with that job offer, you can request early recommendation be sent to your Teach account, which means your certification application can count, everything, as long as you've got everything else needed on your Teach account, your fingerprints, workshops, exams on file. Then we can put a recommendation on there early if you have a job offer, and you can hopefully get your certification sooner rather than later. And as a backup, if that employer is very concerned that your certification issue in time to get you hired when they want you to start, they can submit a request for an expedited review of your application, as long as your application is at least 2 weeks old and in ready for review status. So I would say go ahead and start looking for jobs, but just keep in mind there's these other aspects that I can work closely with you to try to manage.
Thank you so much. Is there usually like a time frame? Like, could it be like a month after graduating that these steps are completed, or more?
Because so much of it depends on the state reviewing your application, we can't really give a strong timeline. But when it comes to the steps that you're taking, basically, you'll know once you schedule an exam and taken it, you'll know exactly when the score will be released to the state and when they'll have it. Once you have, submitted make sure your fingerprints have been released to the state. So if you got fingerprinted by the city and they're not on your NYSED Teach account yet, you'll have to do the form, the ASPR form that was on one of our slides, to release that to the state, for example. So just start checking now and making a timeline of what's not yet done and when you expect it to be done, so you can give yourself an idea as well as when will all of that be on your Teach account. So I think exam scores, for example, some of them takes 3 to 6 weeks before they'll be reported.
And if I have all that already on Teach, I'm okay to start applying.
You're in great shape. If you've got all your exams, workshops, and fingerprints showing on Teach, and you're just going to be essentially applying and waiting for our recommendation, then you're in great shape. And I would say go ahead and start looking for jobs, and then just keep in close contact with me. As soon as you find a job, get a job offer, reach out to me if you haven't been graduated and gotten a recommendation yet, and we will work to help, push it along as much as we can, since we're not the state to approve the certification, but I'll help you with all the other tools and resources we have.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
There was a student who raised their hand, I believe Lauren. If you still have the question, feel free to unmute. You had raised your hand before anyone put anything in the chat, so you can ask your question now. And then there's another student in the chat whose question I will share out loud.
Mine is actually very similar to Max's. This is my 3rd year teaching at a charter school in the field that I'm getting an MA in. So my question, similar to Max, is should I apply for professional certification or initial first and then immediately for professional? What would that look like?
So which field are you in now that you're about to have 3 years in?
TESOL.
It's TESOL, okay. And what's your second field that you're in right now?
So I work at a charter school, but I'm like an MLL specialist at the school.
Oh, I see. Okay. So basically you've been working in what could be considered like an ESL or an ENL type position, right?
Yes.
Okay. So basically it's your choice. What I would say you have to consider is that you can apply for initial certification in TESOL, and that is normally reviewed faster by the state than professional, because they don't need to review or wait for it and then review verification of experience forms and verification of mentorship forms, et cetera. So applying for initial will probably get you TESOL certified faster, but if you want, it sounds like you would be eligible for professional. You could, if you're not in any rush to get your TESOL certification, if you have I'd say give yourself, to be safe, 6 months to wait for your certification. then you are, it's up to you if you want to apply for professional directly without spending the $50 on the application for initial. Just apply for professional, have your school verify the years of teaching in the position you've been in, that you've been working as basically an E&L teacher for those years. If it adds up to professional, 3 years, then wait for the state to review and consider and determine if they're going to count that, and then issue your professional.
Got it. So just to clarify, the fastest way is to apply for initial, and then should I wait to get that initial certification before applying for a professional, or do it in tandem?
I'm not sure that'll make much difference. You can certainly submit your application for TESOL and then submit an application for professional right afterwards. It won't cause your initial application to not be reviewed or anything. It won't really cause any delay. So it's up to you if you wanted to submit them both, like the same day if you wanted. As long as the initial goes on your record first, there shouldn't be any problems. The initial application goes on first.
Thank you.
Okay.
The student's question in the chat was almost the exact same. So Max, please let us know if you had a follow-up question as well. And every other student, I believe I typed the answer out.
Thank you. No, I think that was helpful. Thanks so much.
Great.
I had a direct message. Somebody just wanted to check. Oh, I'm sorry, Nicolette.
Thanks. So the school I work at, they offer to pay for some of the exams, but I'm not sure like which ones that we're required to do. I just started this fall and I'm doing a dual certification. So I know I should take that first initial one you spoke about, but I'm not sure what to do after that.
Which program are you in now?
Early childhood education, birth to grade 2, dual certification.
Nicolette, I'm actually your admin advisor, so it sounds like, and I knew I recognized you, and I went, wait, isn't Nicolette in one of my programs? And then yeah. I was like double guessing myself. Anyway, I'm actually hosting another workshop specifically for your program that will be a lot more specific. So okay. For now, hang tight, and I will find that event link to share with you soon.
Okay, super. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other questions? You can chat to us or raise your hand. If you don't have a question, you can certainly feel free to go. It's Friday.
I guess I have one
more. Just one more. Sorry, Andrea.
No, go ahead.
It's about the TESOL. Because I took them while I was at Hostos like 3 years ago. So do I need to do them over?
No, the workshops do not expire. So if you have a workshop you've taken and it's showing in your teach account, or you have it confirmed from another program you did at a college, then you never have to take that workshop again, thankfully.
Super, thank you.
Andrea?
I just wanted to confirm that I understood it correctly. So I can go ahead and apply for certification, and then it'll sit there and wait until Hunter recommends me after I've graduated, but I can go ahead and initiate that process.
Yeah, you said you're in your last semester now anyway, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a good time to go ahead and apply, and it won't have any negative effects for sitting there until you graduate now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. If nobody else has any questions, we just want to thank you again for making time to join us. If any of your classmates missed the workshop, do encourage them to reach out to me, and we will again email a copy of the presentation to your Hunter email that you registered for. And if you didn't register with the Hunter email, just shoot a message to us to say, hey, could I get a copy? And we will send it out to you. All right, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Be safe, everyone.